Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of Desert Island Deals. And my goodness, look around here. What a setting we are in here on the waterfront in the great city of Annapolis in Maryland. And our guest today is none other than the reigning undefeated, undisputed champion of the Engel Völkers Cup, Mr. Travis, the Annapolitan sensation Gray. And I cannot wait to get into it. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure.
Beautiful, beautiful day.
I mean, just tell us quickly a bit about where are we today, Travis?
Yeah, so we're in we're on Spa Creek in Annapolis, which is where the Annapolis city sits, right where the Severn River to the Chesapeake Bay all come together right at Spa Creek.
Okay.
And so the U.S. Naval Academy is a stone's throw away.
Is that the spire sticking out? Or is that
that's the church, St. Mary's Church.
Traditionally, they tend to be right. Yeah, okay.
But you can see the that's the chapel from the Naval Academy here on the buyer's guide there. But for you, it's interesting. So British, obviously.
Yeah.
They named this creek Spar Creek, I believe.
Yeah.
For the rigging and the boats because they used to do up here, and then we changed it to Spa Creek.
Well, I mean, it's beautiful. This is undoubtedly going to be the most beautiful setting we have any of these podcasts in. So thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you.
And as I said, what an honor for us to have here the champion of the Engel Völkers Cup, reigning, defending Annapolis. That was a hell of an experience for you guys.
That was pretty amazing. A huge honor. And, I didn't really fully understand how much of an honor that was until it all sort of unfolded. And to see, some of these incredible shops over the years that have been recognized, it's very cool.
It's very cool. Well, we are here the morning after the night before. We had the launch party for the Annapolis Buyers and Sellers Guide. It was a great evening. We had all of the advertising partners join us. A lot of the advisors came along. We had Rick was there, Phil as well. It was a great night, eh? Great event.
And the publication has been a huge hit so far. I mean, we just hot off the presses, I think, a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So we're starting to roll that out, and it's pretty cool for us because no one else is doing that. We've heard some other brands are starting to copy it already.
Yeah.
But it's something that really sets us apart in our market from the other brokers in terms of the quality and the elegance of the brand is really truly reflected in that. Publication.
I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I couldn't agree more. Travis, you know the format of this, so it's we always ask the same 8 questions to everyone. But before we get in it, if anyone who doesn't happen to know the reigning champion of the Engel Völkers Cup, maybe to tell the people a little bit about you.
My name's Travis Gray. I with Engel Völkers Annapolis, obviously. I was born and raised here. I was actually born at the old hospital, which is right there downtown.
God, it must be really old if it was old when you were born.
Yeah, it was ancient. But fun fact, the last day of my senior year of high school up the street there, some kids had a party and everyone's out on the deck and the deck collapsed. And it was amazing how much damage can be done in about 12 feet. And so our last day of high school, pretty much the whole senior class ended up in that hospital and on crutches. And it was
really?
Yeah.
Christ.
So yeah, I was born and raised here, and my past life, I was in the television production business for about 12, 13 years.
Okay.
And then 2008 came and kind of wiped us out. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do now? So,
just like everyone else, when there's no other options left.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do real estate. So I moved. I actually already moved back to Annapolis. So it's like, all right. So I got my license. And at the time, 2009, in our market, everyone was leaving the business, and people thought I was just an idiot and insane and whatever to be getting into the business in 2009.
Yeah.
But it did suck really bad for a couple. I think my first year, I was negative $5,000.
Because just get into that, because a lot of obviously we've got a lot of people watching at home in the UK and other places. The reason you could lose money as a realtor in the US is because the general model over here is that there's no salaries, right?
No salaries, yeah.
No salaries,
it's all
commission only.
100% commission.
So you're investing in your own marketing.
Fees, licensing fees, marketing fees, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a rough start. But at the time I was single, I didn't have kids, and I
Is that a tear coming
yeah.
up?
Oh my God. So, but back then I was big into bow hunting, and
No way.
yeah. So thank God I was, because for a couple of years there, I had to kill at least 2 to 3 deer a year, because I basically ate venison 2 to 3 times a day, every single day.
I mean, there's literally the phrase we say for like commission only work is you eat what you
You eat
kill.
what you kill, yeah.
And you
Literally.
eating what you were killing.
But I had to. I had a roommate at the time, and we found more ways to prepare venison than should have written a cookbook. But it was a slow, rough start. But my theory was, because my father was a broker and a developer and a builder, and so my whole life, so I grew up with recessions just being part of life.
Yeah.
And so I knew, I'm like, all right, this recession's going to happen. It's also going to end, and it's going to come back, and then there'll be another one at some point.
Yeah.
So I knew, I'm like, this is going to suck, but I'm gonna maybe I'll be able to establish a little bit of market share while everyone else is getting out of the business.
Uh-huh.
Because just before that, 2005, it was similar to what happened during COVID here, whereas anybody and everybody was getting into the business. It was just flooded with agents because it was so easy.
Right.
All
Fishing
those
barrel
people went
type.
away,
Yeah.
just like they're all starting to go away now. And it was in hindsight, it was sort of dumb luck to get in and muscle
Yeah,
it.
but everyone's like, we hear a lot of this talking to like, people who have succeeded, well, or very successful in real estate, right? And it's like this idea of luck. And actually, like, everyone got lucky to an extent, but we were talking about this with Anthony Hitt. Like, you have to put yourself in situations to be lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So but it's funny how often that comes up, this word of luck in real estate.
What's the saying? The harder you work, the luckier you get. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really true in real estate for sure.
Well, that leads us on very nicely then, Travis, to get into question one. Do you remember your first deal in real estate?
First deal in real estate. Well, I was at a different brokerage than I was in now, that I'm in now.
Can we name who they are? Are we allowed to?
Can we?
I mean, I don't know. Do you
I
want
was with Coldwell Banker.
Oh,
and
okay.
The reason I chose Coldwell Banker is because I'm coming into the real estate world. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I literally just drove around town and saw who had the most signs out.
Yeah. Oh, that's not a bad way to do it.
And so I was like, yeah, if I need some credibility, because I don't have any, and I knew a lot of people, but I didn't have any credibility in the real estate world. And I figured it would take a year, even if people liked me and trusted me, be like, okay, this is a complicated business.
Yeah.
Give them a year to figure it out. But I did my first deal. I represented a friend's little sister. She was buying her first little townhome, and cool little spot, and she was very sweet. But it comes settlement time, and I walk into my office, and we're heading to the conference room, and this woman in my office named Phyllis, absolute piece of work. She's been in the business forever, and I was always scared of her because on her door she had a sign that said, "All whiners will be bitch slapped." And so, kind of
HR has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Like it.
So I kind of kept. She's now my neighbor, so I kept my distance. But she came over. She saw me going into the settlement, and she's like, "Come here." She's like, "You don't know what the fuck you're doing. I'm coming in there with you to make sure you don't screw up." I was like, "Okay."
How old are you at this point?
That was 15 years ago.
Okay.
So,
I mean, it's
mid-30s.
still intimidating. Like
Yeah.
whatever.
Wow, man. Yeah. So she came in and got me through it, and it all went well. But
And where was it? This was in Annapolis.
Annapolis,
Have
yeah.
you only ever worked in Annapolis?
Yes.
As a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Annapolis and the Eastern Shore
Right.
of Maryland.
Right. And what kind of property was that? The first one that you got?
First one was just a little townhouse down the street here, and it was really cool though because it was her first home, and
Nice.
she was, it was I remember when I was a kid, I said a really rude thing to my dad about like how his job wasn't important or something as a real estate broker. And it's one of the few times I've seen him hurt. And he said, well, it feels good when you help people find a home, and get in there.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I hurt his feelings. But then I was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Because it's bigger than the transaction. It's about helping someone solve a problem and create a home for the
Yeah,
their
you're
future.
creating a life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's, you know, it's important. I had an old boss in the city in London who very sadly died of cancer, but his last Christmas speech, when he knew he was going out, he was getting quite emotional. And the thing that he said to everyone is like, you know, you have to recognize that you're having a hand in building the greatest city on the earth.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's true. Like you're responsible for creating communities and people's lives and
Yeah.
their futures. And
It's a lot bigger than a transaction for sure.
yeah. Well, and then okay, well then on transactions, you know, so question two we get into is about, you know, they're not always the smoothest processes. So is there one that stands out in your mind as being the most complicated?
Yeah, they all seem to, I always say it's not if something's gonna come up, it's how big a deal it's gonna be and how are we gonna solve it.
Yeah.
Because in 15 years, I feel like every deal there's something I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it runs the gamut of what form that takes. But one of the more complicated structured deals, it was not the structure of the deal, but the situation was I was hired to list a beautiful waterfront property in Annapolis on one of the creeks. And so here we have a thing called the critical area, which is from the water's edge, 1,000 feet back, and there's
Is that a phrase that's universal for waterfront property or
in the
just something?
Chesapeake Bay critical
Okay,
area,
critical area, okay.
and it's all about protecting the quality of the bay. And but so what
Okay.
that means for us is that the rules get more complicated just by the nature of it being. I won't get into details, but by the nature of it being in the critical area,
Right.
those properties. So this house was absolutely stunning. It was designed by one of the top architects in town. Kathy Purple Cherry was the designer. I don't know
Right.
if we want to include that or not, but
Yeah.
it's a stunning home, just absolutely stunning, and the people were very nice. And we get but the lot was lots of steep slopes and things, and so for us that means the house, everything there was pretty much they maxed out what they could do with the
Right.
pool and we call it impervious surface or lot coverage. So they had maxed it all out. The deal's going pretty smooth. The buyer in this situation was represented by their attorney, not another broker. She's like, okay, that starts to complicate the deal because the attorneys, although
Sound like a conflict of interest if they're like representing that. Were they doing the legal work as
no,
well?
well, no,
No,
they were
okay.
just representing. So in Maryland,
Okay.
you can be represented by an attorney if that's there, and the attorney can get commissions if they practice real estate as part of their regular business.
Okay.
But how it plays out in real life is these attorneys that get involved in real estate deals, they're very good at what they do, but they don't do real estate transactions on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that right off the bat complicates everything because now they're changing and they're doing their lawyer thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we were working through that. The lawyer was very professional, and we get to the title work, and right to the right of the house, between my listing and the neighbor, the builder had built this beautiful Trex decking platform, probably 50 feet long, and it had all the HVAC systems on there.
Yeah.
It had the house generator on there. It had all the pool equipment, the heater, all this stuff on there. Beautiful done. The only problem is that it was built in a right-of-way between this property and the neighbor's property. And it's recorded, you can't build anything in a right-of-way.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't have any structures in a right-of-way. So we jumped through all these hoops trying to figure out, okay, how do we move this? Because to complicate things a little bit more, my client didn't necessarily get along with his neighbor, who was also an attorney, not involved in the transaction. So there wasn't going to be a lot of cooperation. So, I mean, we explored every option. How can we move this equipment and relocate it? But the long story short, there was no place to move it. There was the nature of the lot.
Yeah.
There was no place we could have gotten approval to move anything. So we had to negotiate with an attorney who didn't get along so well with the client, with another attorney involved, and me, and then Coldwell Banker's attorneys got involved because there was so long story short, we got to the finish line, we made it through, but it was weeks of very stressful problem solving and
But I mean,
negotiation.
it couldn't just stay where it was. Like there was no, because otherwise he couldn't get a lending on it or something if it's got an
Well, the
illegal
buyer wasn't going to buy it because then they would be inheriting this issue.
issue. Okay,
And so,
that have been ongoing with. Had they still been talking about like, hey man, you built in this right of way that's ours, and
and you have a neighbor who's not cooperative, so it would, they would have faced the same issue. So it all got worked out. They didn't have to move it. I think there was a negotiation with the two neighbors and some money exchange probably.
yeah, we have in the UK. It's just anything with a real estate transaction. If there's a complication, we just say slap an indemnity on it.
Yeah.
So the lawyers are great at putting like £100 for an insurance policy for if this goes wrong.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, yeah. One more then maybe to remove the PTSD and the stress of talking about this. Maybe what would you say is there one that stands out for you as being the most significant transaction then?
Most significant transaction. This was a great transaction actually, but it was a couple years ago. It was happening.
This is with Engel Völkers, Annapolis.
I think it was.
Yeah.
It may have been right before then.
Okay.
So I represent the buyer. I had randomly gone to a networking event that I usually don't. I had to force myself to go, but I ran into an old friend, an accountant, and he said, "Hey, my sister's been looking at property on her own."
You see this thing about making your own luck, right? It's like,
This was, yeah. And so he's like, "You need to help my sister. She's trying to do this on her own. She doesn't know what she's doing." I'm like, "Sure." So we started search. We find this property over on the Eastern Shore, beautiful waterfront farm. So it ended up being, to date, I think that's my largest transaction price.
Oh, really?
But
what kind of property was it, you say?
It's a 165 acre farm with a vineyard.
Wow.
And on beautiful waterfront property with the pool house alone, I think was 3,000 square feet.
Oh my
It's just
God.
stunning.
And that was a working vineyard as well, or
it had been.
Okay.
But it had been not sort of abandoned. It was a second or third home for the previous owner.
Okay.
And so they had a farm manager kind of keeping an eye on things, but it wasn't top of mind.
Right.
So there was a lot of deferred stuff going on there. One of which was an entire barn full of stuff, including chemicals for the vineyard, and so that was all obviously meant to be all cleared out prior to settlement. And show up, and I was doing the deal with an agent who I know, and I showed up. It was the day before Christmas Eve, and freezing cold. And I'm in my dress clothes because I was just stopping by to check in, see how progress is going. And settlement was supposed to be the next day. I think settlement was going to be on Christmas
Settlement in the US means complete, same as completion in the UK. Like
yes,
so contracts, done,
everything's signed, transferred,
done, money's transferred,
done.
Okay.
And I show up, and I go in the house, and everything was pretty much gone. There are a few knickknacks and things. I'm like, okay, this will be done by tomorrow, no problem. Then I swung by the barn just on a whim, and they hadn't touched anything. So this is probably 10 years of accumulated junk and the farmhands piling stuff up. So it's just barn filled with shit. And so I'm like, holy crap. And they have one little dumpster there. And so I call my buddy who's one of the listing agents, and I'm like, so-and-so, I'm like, listen, we got a problem. My people are not going to settlement until all this stuff is gone. And the seller was not going to push settlement. And this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a big problem. And this is a big deal. And it's Christmas time, so everyone's going to be scattering. Yeah, everyone's leaving town. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'm on the way to the hardware store to get a pair of gloves. He said, get me a pair too. I'm on the way. And so, and now, so he starts calling people, I start calling people, and it kind of restored my faith in humanity, because we had, within an hour, we had round up about 15, between the two of us, round up about 15 different people, 2 more dumpsters. We spent all night, the entire day loading 2 giant dumpsters and trucks, and
This is all like rusted out, like
It's everything you
cracking.
can imagine, from old paint, old chairs, to just accumulated
Chemicals that have been
stuff.
illegal since
Yeah,
1947.
which have to be handled the correct way. But what was so amazing about it was the camaraderie, and just seeing, like, you hear all this shit in the news about, and then you see people on the ground that just, and all that's gone, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
people, guys being guys, helping each other out and working their tails off to
yeah, yeah.
accomplish a goal.
Oh
And
man.
so
So how many hours do you say that was in total, like everyone together?
I think I got there at 10 a.m. and left at 11 p.m.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, then
Wow.
we had, yeah. So as they're leaving, one of the trailers breaks down, and my client's like, "Well, we want everything." I mean, they're buying a very expensive property. They don't
Yeah.
want any issues, and I don't blame them. And so, yeah, it was a comedy of errors, but it all worked out.
That
Yeah.
is great. That is great. And you're right about that thing about sort of, sometimes when you think like, well, this is, no way, I'm going to figure this out. And it's the greatness of people that make things work.
Sometimes is the biggest challenges that you think are going to be a disaster end up being the best gifts that you
Huge
could ask
wins.
for.
I don't know. Yeah, no wonder that's like the most significant. I mean, so to you it's significant because of the price point, but was it significant in terms of the stage of your career? Do you feel like it elevated you into another where you can say, I've handled transactions at this level? Was it significantly more than ones you've done before?
It was the biggest um, sale price transaction that I've done, but there were others that were similarly close. So not so much on that end. It was significant in that it was a complex deal
Yeah.
in a lot of different ways, but it was most significant because of that cleanup day
That last
and what
13 hours or two.
and the bond that it created between everyone that was there. And I thought that was transcended the real estate transaction and really brought a human element to it.
As we know, like it's great. There's these transactions that are life affirming and they make you feel good about the world. But there are also those ones that you struggle to sleep sometimes at night because it's there in the back of your head, thinking maybe it could have been different. I could have done this differently, or maybe it just completely screwed up and never came to fruition. But is there one that sticks out in your mind as a transaction that you could label as the one that got away?
There's more than one, but I will pick out one that the most recent one was right about this time last year, maybe a little closer to Christmas. A buyer client wanted to come to town, and out of the blue, like it just, and this is a big buyer. This would have been my biggest transaction,
Oh, really? Well, you were saying representing the buy side.
representing the buyer,
Okay.
and it just happens these happen to be buyer sites. But this one, so the come across this property I was very familiar with the property. It was one of very few properties in the Annapolis area that come with a lot of acreage.
Okay.
It's just all, like here you see they're all packed in together.
Well, I was thinking that the one, just to go back, the one you were talking about with 165 acres, was that?
That's on the Eastern Shore.
Okay, but that's in Annapolis.
No, totally different county.
Oh, okay.
That's outside of Easton.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking, Christ, how do you get 165 acres?
Yeah, no, you don't.
Okay.
And so here, this I think was on 6 acres, which
Yeah.
is kind of unheard of.
Okay. If we're pointing roughly which direction from here?
That way. Yep. It's on the creek off of, so we have the Severn River,
Yeah.
and then north of us is the Magathie,
Okay.
and then south of us is the South River.
Yeah.
And those are the 3 rivers that kind of make up the Annapolis area
Ah,
market.
Okay. Okay.
So this is off the South River. But it was sort of extraordinary because this house, the people had driven by it while it was being renovated. It was this older mansion style house that had fallen into disrepair,
Mm-hmm.
and it was being completely renovated by a company called Gate One Construction.
Yep.
Matt Long, a Naval Academy graduate, is the principal,
Ah.
and they're one of the highest end builders in town.
Yep.
And so when they do a project, it's perfect. I mean, it's beautiful. And so they had driven down the road because they had gotten married on that property 30 years ago, when I think it was somehow connected to Harry Belafonte back in the
Okay.
80s. But somehow the story was they had gotten married there, and they were just driving down memory lane.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, which was last year, the house comes on the market for sale after being completely renovated.
Were you aware that it was for sale at this point?
It had just come on the market. Like, it hadn't been on the market very long.
Because that's interesting, just to get into that for a sec. So the way that it works with representing a buying client in the UK, and this didn't, when I started out in 2009, it was like there were like 3 or 4 buying agents that I knew, that I'd come across. By the time I left the real estate game this year, 2024, we had a mailing list for buying agents, about 350 buying agents. So it became more of a thing. But the idea that you would always be retained by your client, or that there wasn't some way that they could be like, oh, I found a property myself, so don't worry about it. So if these guys are driving past and they see that it's available, did you already have, like, was it contracted, your position with them, or was this just like a gentleman's agreement?
They were referred to me because they're not from the area.
Right.
So they were referred to me by a mutual friend.
Okay.
And
when that happens, do you say, yeah, sure, I'll work with you, here's my agreement?
well, now we do, because all these lawsuits we have
it's
to.
the change in the laws. Okay.
Yeah. But this is before that, and so it was a little more loosey-goosey. And so I was like, yeah, let's go take a look at it. And we looked at it, and I knew the listing agent, a friend, former colleague, and so we have a very good relationship. And we go in, we come back, they bring their kid, you know, the whole thing. And they love it. Now it's competitive because another friend, colleague, has another buyer.
Yeah.
And so there are 2 offers on the table. And we all know each other, all professional, but we had to outmaneuver the other deal, and we were successfully able to do that on this one. And so we get it under contract. It's like December 1st or something like that, settling on December 30th. Huge deal, like pretty clean.
Yeah.
We're gonna do inspections, like just as a courtesy, kind of, because there was nothing wrong with the house. Get it all under, and no, I'm sorry, it was Thanksgiving, because it was Thanksgiving Day.
When's Thanksgiving in? It's November time, is it?
Yeah, and in November.
Okay.
So just about the 1st of December.
Okay.
And so on Thanksgiving Day, we're gonna start inspections, you know, the following Monday or whatever. We just beat out, it was very stressful. We just beat out this other person, and that agent probably burned a bridge with this agent, you know. But we get in and we're like, great, we got it done. So Thanksgiving Day, I got a text or a phone call, I can't remember. And the bottom line was they were out, and that was definitive. And I had to call the other agent.
I mean, they didn't offer anything more than we're out?
It was, I don't know, and sometimes I don't ask because I trust people have valid personal
Sure. We're not
things.
trying to twist anyone's arm.
Yeah, if that's your decision.
Yeah.
It's your decision. It's none of my business. But so I had to call the other agent, and she was like, "You gotta be kidding me." And so now she's got to go to her clients and then go groveling back to the other agent who lost, and those buyers are now pissed.
Super pissed.
Yeah. And but so my people went away, and you know, it's one of those swings in real estate, right? Like you never, from a commission standpoint, you never count on anything because there's too many variables. But it was the right decision for them at the time, and the buyer too who lost out, they ended up getting it, and so hopefully they're happy and had a good deal. But that one I was always like, oh.
Did you end up going on to secure anything else with them, or was it like that kind of?
Well, I think part of it was just they realized their timing was probably a year or two earlier than they wanted.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Okay, so it was a time. Yeah.
And it's a lot of I think they also realize it's a lot of property to take care of if you're not there on a regular basis.
Okay, so this would have been a second home.
Well, for a couple of years, it would have been a second home.
Right.
Until they fully moved.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And so that was you're saying here that's part of the Annapolis sort of area, and so obviously you grew up in this area. This is the place that you know best of America. Would you say that in your life there is a property that maybe stands out to you as like the most significant property in your life, and whether that's a transaction or another piece of real estate that means a lot to you?
I was thinking about this morning. I was sitting around our kitchen table, and my daughter's coloring, and my wife's cooking something, and I was like, how am I going to answer this question?
Yeah.
And it just hit me like, our little house in West Annapolis is the most significant property in my life because
it's your castle.
we built it, we bought it and renovated. We bought it when we were engaged, and we bought it in the neighborhood because we thought if we ever have kids one day, which we didn't know, we said this is probably where we want to. We agreed this is where we want to be.
Yeah.
And we spent every penny we could afford at the time because we literally just gotten married and we were going to get married, so we were planning a wedding, renovating a house, and doing all this stuff. So it's nothing special, but it's our blood, sweat, tears. And then I looked down at my kids. I'm like, this is the most significant property for me because this is our home.
Yeah.
This is my kids' home. This is my wife's home.
When you were thinking about places to buy that kind of forever house, was there which region do you say it's in?
It's called West Annapolis, which would have been like in the 50s. That would have been, when Annapolis was much smaller, that would have been a little suburb with a little elementary school and a couple of shops.
Yeah. And so was there another area that you were thinking maybe as well, or was it always like that's where you wanted to be?
When we got engaged, we went to New York to see her siblings and let them know, and then we sat down at some little bar and ordered beers, and we got about halfway through one beer by the time we had agreed that West Annapolis was the only place we wanted to be.
Okay, so West Annapolis, and that was it for you guys. You're like, this is where you'll live forever, right? This is.
My wife would move every day. She talks about moving to a farm or moving to the mountains,
right,
without electricity. So I don't know. We'll see how real estate goes.
If there was one other place in the US that if you had to, someone's got a gun to your head, you have to leave Annapolis, take your family and move somewhere
Colorado.
else. Colorado. Okay, which bit?
Not exactly sure. I went to school in Colorado, at the university in Colorado.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's and we take the kids camping out there every year, every summer. So it's just but I also, when I lived out there, I missed the water. I missed the historic culture element of that, which you just don't get.
This is like, without a shadow of a doubt, like the most beautiful city.
It's a cool little
that
town.
I've ever been in. It's like it's just the city.
It's a city technically, yeah, but it's small.
Yeah, so my family live in Scotland. There's a place called Elgin, and it qualifies as a city because it has a cathedral in it.
Okay.
But it's like falling down. No one goes in there anymore. But it is a city. But it's like, it reminds me of this kind of vibe. It's like a very close-knit community.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I mean, this is way more beautiful than Elgin. But it's like walking down that main street the other night after we'd had the event, and I was like, I mean, God, this is.
It's thriving right now, and it wasn't always like that. It since COVID, I heard a stat the other day. In 2020, we were averaging about 4 million tourists a year.
Yeah.
And now it's about 8 million.
Jesus.
So just since COVID, it's really been discovered.
And that's people coming from within, like, I don't know, a 2-hour radius or something, or they've
a lot of DC. So COVID brought a ton of DC money, and it almost doubled our highest sale ever. So it opened up a whole nother price point.
Wow.
Which I think our market was lagging for a while.
Was that the year you won the cup? Was that the result?
It was a year, but I think it was 2021.
21. Okay, so you won 23. So the market from 22 is
21 was crazy. 22, I think the first half was good, if I recall.
Yeah.
For everybody, and then it's slowed down. I think at the.
Well, funny enough, I know this from talking with Brett Snyder in Montana.
Yeah.
He was saying during Engel Völkers Montana, he was saying that COVID market was insane. Insane, like people wanting to get out and get ranches and estates and be just outside of touch some earth.
Well, the thing from the DC market is, depending on where you live in DC, it can take you an hour, 45 minutes to get to wherever you're going.
Right.
To your office. We're 45 minutes to an hour from here to DC, depending on traffic.
Wow.
So I think people realize once they were working from home more, they could be sitting here looking at the water and get on their boat and go out, and still, if they had to get to DC, about the same
Do you have a lot of politicos in Annapolis? Has this become a bit of a commuter town for DC?
Not really. I mean, lobbyists and that sort of thing, but I think they mostly hover closer to DC in the DC world. We have our own breed of politicians on a local level, but it's we have a transient element too because of all the federal government and military. So there's the area in general gets some of that.
Yeah. Because I had
spies. We have spies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stop the tape.
No.
It's like, this is red dot appearing on your forehead.
Yeah. Jennifer
Take him down.
Jennifer McCormick, who was at the event last night.
Yes.
She and her husband were interviewed by the news channel. They live in a neighborhood right over here, and one of their neighbors, this couple, who I think taught at the local private school. Anyway,
Yeah.
they got busted. They were selling submarine secrets to the Russians, and so Jen, one of our advisors, and her husband are on camera, and the tagline at the bottom, the thing at the bottom, it says, "Russian spies found in Hillsbury." So it looks like they're the Russians.
Tell me that was a still that was put up on
Oh, I
this.
haven't got it. I'll send it to you.
So look, Travis, as we enter the home straight of the podcast, we were going to reflect back on previous days that you've had working as a realtor. Is there a red letter day? Is there one that sticks out as being your most memorable or greatest, for whatever reason, in your real estate career?
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to use this or not, but it is the truth for me. The most memorable deal, one of the best experiences I've had as a professional. Many years ago, I got a call from an attorney from Baltimore, and she said, "You don't know me, but we met a couple years ago. I came through one of your open houses." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "I need your help for a client of mine." This is kind of a dark story, but I said, "Okay." So what had happened was she was representing this woman with 2 teenage daughters, remarried, and building a beautiful waterfront home, I think, at the time, but living in their current home. And I don't know the details, but basically the mother became aware that her husband, the girl's stepfather, had been abusing her for many years.
Oh, right, okay.
And she literally put the girls in the car, said, "We're going to get ice cream, we'll be back," and pulled out of the driveway and never came back. And she was scared for herself, for her kids, the whole thing.
Jesus.
And so this attorney said, "I need your help. They need to be in this certain neighborhood because of this certain school. They need a garage, with automatic door. And this is to rent
Yeah.
for like a year. This is get us to a safe place because the new home wasn't ready. And they didn't want, they kind of were going into hiding, and they needed a fenced yard for privacy for the kids. And it had to happen in like 2 weeks. I was like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
okay. And it was so impactful to me at the time. I didn't have kids at the time, but I was just like, the gravity of this in you hear about that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But being in the room with the victims and just, it was crazy. It was crazy, but I never felt more like inspired. These people truly needed my help, and I might be able to help them.
Yeah.
Something I might be able
It's
to
a rare
help
thing
these
to be able to actually be a person who can help fix a
Yeah.
situation as grave as that, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
And through a stroke of luck, I started talking to people in my office at the time, and a guy in my office who I didn't really know, and he was sort of, didn't come around much, but he happened to be in the office that day, and I just happened to talk to him, and he said, "Well, in fact, I just finished renovating a house in that neighborhood that met all the criteria,
yeah.
beautifully renovated, and they agreed to rent it to this family, to the mom and the girls." And so within 2 weeks, they were in the house with the garage, with the fence, down the street from the school they needed to be in too. And it was disturbing, but also significant in that it was, I would say of all the transactions I've ever done, regardless of the price point, that was the most important one.
That's amazing. Yeah, look, I get it. I mean, like, not everyone comes to us as realtors to say, I'm in this great situation. I've got, it's like it's a hugely emotive experience buying or selling a property.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, like, I was thinking about this. You sell family homes that have been people's, it's generationally,
Yeah.
right? It's been owned, and it's a real pinch for people to have to do these things. And then there are people who come to us in desperate circumstances that need help, right? And it's
and in this market, I mean, with no one selling because of rates, right?
Yeah.
And so it's what we're seeing. We joke around like, so right now, not joke, but what we genuinely see, people selling, it's due to a death, divorce, or forced downsizing.
right.
And all those things are stressful
Yeah.
and emotional because
Yeah.
it's a transition of life in whatever form that takes. And we're humans, and everyone involved is humans, and there's a lot of money at stake too.
Yeah.
So it's a super emotional business for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's the responsibility is enormous. That's why I think it's like, sometimes people think about like realtors. Yeah, most people I think appreciate that there's a lot of work, that it's not a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
But it can be an emotionally draining job as well, right? It's
For
like
sure.
when a transaction falls through in any other type of business, right? There's financial loss, there's people's time, there's whatever. But it's also like sometimes people lose their dreams. Like they're now I've always said as well that I do genuinely believe that it's that whole thing of like one door opens, one door closes, another one opens. These things sometimes happen for a reason, and you actually do find that when a transaction falls through and people think, I will never get over this, something comes up and they're like, oh my God, this is the one,
I've learned over the years to never, maybe for a second or a day, but I never get hung up on a deal I didn't get
Yep.
or a listing I didn't get, because just like you say, I believe everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I'm totally with it.
For me and for my clients, I just had a client that they wanted to buy a house on one specific street in one neighborhood,
Yeah.
and they lost out on a deal that was close to that street but not on it, and they were devastated. And I told them, I said, listen, trust me, I've seen this happen over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
If a deal like this falls apart, it's meant for a reason. There's something better.
Yeah.
It just might take time. And for them, it took another year. I think it was a total of 2.5 years they were looking.
Wow.
But thank God that first one, they didn't win the first one, because they ended up getting the perfect house on the exact street that they wanted, with the bay views and everything.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, it's nice when these things pan out, and it's especially with all of the work that's involved and the drain on it. But if we were going to give you 24 hours off from all of that, from the stress and the highs and the lows and the ones that got away and the significant moments that have happened in your career, if we were to give you a 24-hour break and let you be anything that you wanted at the top of your game, what is it that you think you'd like to do?
It's simple, but it's two things. So during the day, I would operate an excavator, and I'd probably take up smoking cigarettes or cigars again, just for the day while I'm operating the excavator. And then at night, I'd be a bartender.
And any particular bar?
Nope.
No.
Just a good one.
Just
a little
good one.
small, maybe a little Irish pub or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the appeal of that in the bar in the evening is what is the talk with the customers or the.
Maybe it's the talking, but being able to walk away. So no, like.
Oh, that's it. Job's done.
Yeah. Well, no, and also like, I can't sit there and talk to you for too long. Just a little bit.
What's our running time at the minute?
Because I really don't like people. That's as far.
One thing I hate more than anything is long form conversations.
Yeah. It's exhausting. Except this one. I'm president. This is great.
I refer to it as like a JCB. We would have like these digging sort of things. So the excavation element, because it's like, it's A to B. The job is done when the hole is this size, or is it the simplicity of it?
I think it's just having you're by yourself. I've never actually operated an excavator. I've operated. I grew up working on a family farm, so I've operated farm equipment my whole life, but never an excavator.
Yeah.
And it just looks like. Remember when you're a kid at the playground and you got those things? It was like, that's my son. I'm like jealous of my son when he does it. So
it's really stuck with you from the age
of digging shit up and moving it and changing.
I mean, there is something, I do sometimes think like, there is something very satisfying about like the manual element of it as well, right? I mean, I'm not amazing at DIY, but I get stuff done.
Yeah.
I put up like a huge curtain pole the other day in a bay window. That was not easy.
No.
Like I had to bend the metal,
No.
screw into the thing. There was brickwork, woodwork thing. I had like my huge drill out. And like when I looked at it at the end, I was like, that job is like, that's put a line through that. That job is done. Oftentimes, you know, and whatever other careers you're in, it's like, it's just things, just the kind of a continuous, like, you know, it will never be done.
Well, I try to stay in my lane because I'm not super DIY, and in fact I tried to fix our dryer the other day, and I nearly burnt down the house because I left the giant cable up against the heating element, and it was
Okay, so
terrible.
so
I'll leave that to the experts. I'll hire next time. Just hire the appliance guy.
Yeah,
Let
let's
him
just
do
get
his
you
thing.
into an excavator. I'm sure. What could go wrong?
Yeah, that would be a big field.
Travis, this has been enormously enjoyable. I very much
Great.
loved having you here, and we always love to end it. You know, a lot of people watch this because, you know, either they know you or there's people who want to understand about their different market or people's different experiences in their career. But if anyone's watching who is thinking about getting into real estate, is there anything that you think is the sort of advice that you would want to hand over to a new starter?
I think the most important thinking. I mean, the most important thing. Let me start over.
Yeah.
It's taken me years of in this business and other business, but making mistakes and trying to learn from them and trying to improve. And we all go through different phases of maturity and throughout our professional career. I think where I've landed, I have a mantra when it comes to real estate for me and how I do my business. It's pretty simple. Just do the right thing, work with good people.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And by do the right thing, I mean, that's integrity, that's honesty, that's not telling somebody what they want to hear just so you can I lose listings all the time because I'm very honest and I don't sugarcoat what I believe the truth is because I don't think that serves anybody.
No, absolutely.
But so I think that's really important. I think it's absolutely critical to be respectful, courteous, graceful, kind to other agents, other advisors, because it's not a transactional. I don't look at it as a transactional business. It's a long-term relationship business with our clients, with our colleagues, and work with good people. I used to go after any listing I possibly could because, you know, and the bigger the better, and because I wanted that. And then I realized price point doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters now when I come home to my family, I don't want to be carrying negative energy from a client that, you know, is not a good fit for me.
Yeah, and that you've set off on the wrong foot with because you've said things that you are like, I regret that, I should have done that, and then you're working back from it, and working with integrity and honesty. You know, it's funny, it's in our first episode with Ollie Hamilton, he used almost the very same phrase. He talked about working with grace.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, and for him it was an element of like the way you present yourself to people, and the way you present yourself to people is not just things you wear, but it's the things you say. You know, and being able to reflect on the words you've used and back them up with whether that's statistics or your actions.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is, you know, it makes me think of the very first viewing I ever did. This was in 2009.
Viewing.
So
you call them viewings?
Yeah, we call them viewings.
So not like a dead body. You're showing a property? Okay.
Yeah, my first cadaver. So what do you call them when you take people to a property?
Showing.
A showing.
Showing, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Showing, viewing. I guess that's weird. Like the difference there is you're showing them property. I'm taking them there to view it.
So when you go to a funeral, are you showing? Like, are you?
Yeah, we go to a showing. You know. So the first ever viewing I did in 2009, it was this company I was working for called Finley Brewer, a small independent agent. I was there for 7 years. Loved them. They taught me everything that I was like about the way you act with people. But the Simon Greswell, who's the owner of the business, I went to him and I was like, Simon, I've got to do this viewing. I was like, it's my very first one. What's the advice here? And he just went, don't eat their food and don't crap in their toilet. He's like, oh, and then he goes, third thing, don't lie to anyone. I was like, and
That's brilliant.
Every time I've gone into like a property store, like in the back of my mind, it creeps in, don't open their fridge, don't use their toilet. Just like, and don't tell anyone a lie.
Do we have time? Can I tack on a story there?
Yeah, you take us absolutely.
And as much as you can, don't let your clients crap in their toilets, because I had this showing, And I meet this cute young family, little kids, the wife's beautiful, the husband's great, they're like super outdoorsy. We look at this house and we're all wrapping up, and the wife says, "Oh, I just need to go use the bathroom real quick." I'm like, "Oh, absolutely." And she comes down to leave, and she's like, they're kind of in a hurry now, and she's like, the toilet wasn't working. I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it." They get in their car and they're gone, out of state, back to Pennsylvania, or whatever. Oh yeah, I'm walking through the house, shutting off lights, and I come to the toilet, and I mean, it was like a football player had. It was, and the toilet was not only not working, it was threatening to overflow, and there was no way to fix it. I mean, I'm trying everything, and after an hour, I finally give up and I call the listing agent. I'm like, "I don't know how to tell you this, but this is what happened, and I can't solve the problem." She was like, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, "This is a first." So add that. Yeah, don't let your clients crap in their toilets.
I mean, I don't think there's better advice
No.
out there. Like, don't eat the food, don't crap in the toilet, and don't lie. I mean, like, if
Yeah.
you live by that triumvirate of rules, I think you'll go far in this game.
That's pretty base level. So going back to one thing, because I wanted to, do we have time for?
Yeah,
Okay.
you take as long as you want, pal.
So going back to the, I think your advice, and I want to give just a little anecdote of a story that happened to me relatively early in my career. Well, I guess I was just starting to like get a name, and so I was starting to get some calls from people. And I get a call from these people who had a funky, not an easy sale. This house had been on the market for a while, and they wanted me to list it for them, to take over the listing. It was listed by another broker, and I said, "Well, let me just go take a look at this property." I think it was $500,000.
Right.
But at this time, I mean, I was starting a name, but I was still like, I was struggling. Like, I needed the money. It was, and that would have been a great listing to take. And I looked down at the marketing materials, and I didn't know the agent, but I knew who she was, and I knew she was well respected, and her marketing materials were top notch. And so I called him. I said, "Listen, I just gotta be honest with you. Like, I could come and redo all the marketing, maybe do a couple things different, but it's all essentially the same." I said, "But what I'm going to tell you is at this stage in where you are in the listing and on days on market, it's time to drop the price. There's only we can do some more marketing stuff to reinvigorate it, but at this point, at that time, I'm like, all I'm going to do is tell you you need to drop the price and the property will sell." I said, "So my recommendation is you're with a good agent, with a good brand, good marketing. The closest or the fastest way to the finish line, in my opinion, is to stay with your agent, reduce the price."
Wow.
And they did. And they reduced the price and it sold. And they relayed our interaction to their agent. And the agent called me. She said, "Wow, that's really professional. I appreciate that." I was like, "I would want the same. I just, She's like, "Well, thank you." 2 years later, that agent called me and she's like, "Travis," she's like, "a neighbor of mine wants to sell, and they don't want to use me because they don't want an agent in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're wonderful people." I said, "Sure, I'd love to help." That was a $4.5 million listing, and it was a wonderful transaction. And at the time, it was my biggest deal I'd ever had in my life, and it all direct line back to just doing the right thing.
That is so. That karmic circle thing is like, I'm a firm believer in
real.
the things you put in and they come back to you, whatever. But also, yeah. I mean, were you expecting, with that advice, making the sale successful, that maybe the agent would have got in touch and said, "Hey, I owe you a favor. Here's the thing," or was it like, "No, it's fine. It's moved on," and then when they came back to you, that was
totally unexpected. Totally. Yeah, she did exactly she said a very heartfelt thank you, and that was
That's sufficient.
Yeah. She didn't have to do anything.
Travis, before we go though, I have got to ask as well. Tell us a bit about this one here. What is this
cup,
first and foremost?
The Engel Völkers Cup that I think you stole from the shop last night.
Yeah, I might have worn it on my head on the way out. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the questions about one of the greatest days in real estate of recent time, it was this past year. We were in Las Vegas for we call it EVX, which is our annual convention. And, I've been with the brand now 3 years, so I don't understand all the history and the things, but I knew the cup was a big deal. And I remember Andrew Ellett in Jackson Hole was I remember talking to him at some event about like, they had it up on their wall, like the goal of winning the cup one day. And I was like, wow, I was like, one day, maybe in like the next 10 years, we can do this. And didn't really know anything about it. I knew it was important.
Yeah.
Within the brand. And so last year before EVX, huge news, Rick announced that we were one of the 7 nominees for the cup. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. Like, nobody even knows who we are at the time. Like, they're like, Minneapolis? I'm like, no, Annapolis. They're like, oh, near Boston. I'm like, no.
Minneapolis.
It's Maryland. It's Maryland.
Maybe I could call you Maxieapolis.
Yeah. So we're like, that's pretty cool. We're gonna be on the board. Like, we'll get a little recognition as being one of the nominees. That's a huge honor.
Yeah.
And we go out there.
Because there's 350 Engel Völkers shops in the US, something
like that. 330, 350.
Yeah. So you're in the top 7 already.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think the criteria has a lot to do with growth and a lot to do with collaboration within the brand. And
it's hugely important to the brand, right?
Authenticity. Yeah. And so we're out there at the big awards night and we're all standing there and we had a huge group come with us. We brought, I think, half the people from our shops came out, which isn't a ton, but for us it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so we're standing there, and there's, in my mind, there's zero. I mean, you're hopeful, right?
Yeah.
But there's like zero expectation, and they're getting ready to announce, and I started getting really nervous, and I had nothing to do with. I mean, nothing to do with it, except being a part of the. I mean, it's really. I put the lion's share of everything that was done on Rick and his incredible contributions to the brand.
Yeah.
But so when they announced Annapolis, I just heard myself screaming, and we walk up on stage. I was just like shocked at how overcome I was with like pride in what I'd been a little bit of a part of helping to build. And
how did that manifest itself? Were you like?
I couldn't walk. My knee, literally, I thought I was going to fall down. I'm like, what the fuck is going on with my body? Like, I'm literally, like, I was so, I don't know what it was.
Well,
but
it was
like,
people don't often get that sort of level of vindication of the blood, sweat, and tears in a word, right? And if it hits you all at once, to be like, yeah, what I've been doing is right.
I think that's exactly it, because it's, when I came on, I left the top office at the time and a huge group, and people thought I was crazy, but I believed in this brand and in Rick and what he was building and what we could even build further.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary to make a change like that, but I believed in it, and you doubt yourself along any path like that. That's, and I think you're right. I think this was like, yeah, we're doing something special here.
Yeah.
And it's very nice. But it's what it means, I think, for the people and the brand. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was a really special day, and I didn't anticipate that reaction from myself.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm not surprised. Like, it's a big deal. I mean, it's a beautiful trophy anyway to have.
And it holds a lot of beer. There's a video of that too.
There's only one way to find out.
And there's a great video of Rick dancing with it, which should.
We'll find that somewhere. Yeah. We'll find it. Travis, man, this has been an absolute joy.
Thank you very much. This has been great.
Working with you on the publication side of things as well, and seeing your beautiful city over the last couple of days. We're so thankful to you for hosting us as well and having us here. But this has been so much fun, man. Thank you for joining.
Well, we appreciate, the work and effort that went into that, and the patience with us along the way, and you guys coming over here. Now, Connor's been here 2 or 3 times. That means it's a different level of. It feels like the good old days. How business is meant to be done on a real personal level. So that means a lot.
Well, it means a lot to us, man.
Yeah.
Cheers, Travis.
Cheers.
Sláinte.